Right, so let's get straight into my review of Attack on Titan, episode 62, A Door of Hope. The episode starts off with Reiner's mother talking to a young Reiner about the, quote, island devils, and she blames the first king and those who followed him for the present plight of the Lydians in Marley, particularly using it as the reason for Reiner's Marleyan father abandoning the family. This bit of info also reveals that Reiner is half Marleyan, though this seems to have no effect on his Titan Shifter abilities. The scene then cuts back to present day Reiner, who reflects on the reason why he strove to become a warrior in the first place. A flashback starts, showing us the training that Reiner and the warrior candidates went through to become warriors. We then cut to a young Zeke, who will be around 17 at this point, informing the younger candidates that all but one of them will inherit the Titan. Reiner expresses delight at this prospect, but is shot down by Porco, who believes that if anyone will get left behind, it will be Reiner. This leads to an altercation between the two, with Reiner accusing Porco of being a restorationist, the group that Grisha was leading in the season 3 flashbacks. It can also be seen why Zeke is the leader of the warrior group, apart from his special abilities, as he is the most senior candidate to inherit. Marcel, Porco's brother, then apologizes to Reiner before going off with the others. Despite appearing around the same age, Marcel is actually Porco's older brother. After we are treated with some anime content, the next scene follows up on Bertel and Reiner discussing the harsh reality of becoming a warrior, with Reiner stating that he would bear it if it meant he could become a hero and do his family proud. After this, we cut to a young Eren and Armin in paradise, presumably at the same moment, contrasting the two perspectives, with the manga specifically stating, "The skies they looked up at were one of the same." After the trailer, we are treated to a scene going over the strengths and abilities of the new Titan shifters, with an anime-only military style file run-up of each of the six warriors. This replaces scenes in the manga, which showed the warrior candidates pre-inheritance training. We then see Magath and another officer going over the destructiveness of the Colossal Titan, as well as the planned mission to Paradise Island, with Magath voicing his disagreements with the mission's idea of using fresh warrior candidates to do such a complex operation. And, if I may say so myself, who is running Marley? Who came up with the idea to send 12-year-olds to carry out the most complex and important operation that their military had to do? Who came up with this idea? This is the most boneheaded scheme you could come up with, especially when you've been preparing the island for Titan combat by sending Titans there for the past 100 years. Anyway, getting back to the analysis. Porco then complains to Reiner in the next scene, surprised that Reiner was given the armor Titan instead of him, visibly distraught compared to the temporarily smug Reiner. This king is, however, due to a cryptic apology from Marcel, the cause of which we find out later in the episode. The warriors who are to be sent off to the island are then paraded around before they depart on their journey. Zeke and Peak are left behind in order to keep up Marley's defense against other nations. And furthering my comments on Marley's idea here, why would they keep behind the oldest warrior, Zeke, with the best abilities, instead of sending him to paradise initially? If he had gone along initially, in place of, let's say, Reiner or Annie or Bertel or even Marcel, like that would have definitely improved the chances of the mission. But clearly the Marleyan High Command knew what they were doing here. No incompetence at all. Reiner's mother looks on with pride as Reiner himself relishes in the hard fought for a moment. However, he soon spots a man in the audience who presumably matches his mother's description of his father. After the parade, he follows the man and catches up to him in what appears to be his workshop, pouring out his wish for them to all live back together as a family now that he is a honorary Marleyan. His dreams are quickly crushed when his father reveals that he wants nothing to do with them, and his quote, "damn a Lydian mother." It should be noted here that mixing with Lydians is a crime in Marley and could have serious repercussions, hence why the father mentions his other family could be in danger. This shutdown comes as a huge blow to Reiner and basically shatters his entire goal and self-purpose. However, he tells himself as he is shipped off to the island. However, he tells himself as he is shipped off to the island that he will work towards being a hero to Marley instead, in order to keep moving forward. The next scene we get is the warriors taking their journey to the walls via horseback. There is also a cut from the manga here where Manga sends the warriors off, giving them instructions and wishing for them all to make it back alive, which shows a different side to Magath as a character. This character development may be included in a different way at some point in the anime. We then see a scene at a campfire outside of the walls, where Reiner reminds his comrades of the mission. Marcel, in a moment of guilt, then reveals to Reiner that he influenced the military's decision to give him the armored titan in place of Parko, in order to protect his younger brother, which was alluded to earlier in the episode. This shocks Reiner, who, in a now distraught state, fails to notice a pure titan appear behind him, which of course is Ymir's pure titan. Marcel then rushes to protect him and is eaten. Reiner then flees in a panic, leaving behind the rest. It should be noted that we saw this scene, or at least a version of it, in an OVA and then in a season 2 episode. The next scene occurs sometime later with a tired and distraught Reiner taking a, breather at a tree. He then believes all of his comrades died except him and expects to be the next. He is then frightened by someone kicking him. This person is then revealed to be Annie, with Bertolt behind her. Annie then expresses her wishes to return to the port and inform the Marleyan command of their misfortune, knowing that this will probably result in the death of Reiner in retaliation for his incompetence. Reiner imposes the idea, for obvious reasons, and attempts to intimidate Annie and Bertolt into staying, speculating that it will not only be him that is punished for the failure of the mission. Annie, realizing the truth of this statement, attacks Reiner in a fit of frustration and rage, viciously beating him to the point of apparent unconsciousness. Reiner, however, manages to get up and trap Annie in a headlock, informing her that, quote, Reiner is dead. If we need Marcel, I'll be Marcel. The start of Reiner's split personality on Paradise Island. In the next scene, we cut to the ever-familiar episode 1 opening scene, where Eren, Mikasa, and Armin witness Bertolt's colossal titan destroying the wall. There are major cuts from the manga at this junction, including Annie transporting Reiner and Bertolt to the walls, running from / driving a force of pure titans to the walls. It is also included that Annie struggled during the run, as Marcel was supposed to take up half of the effort. It is possible that the anime retconned this, and in the anime's canon, Annie was simply taken unconscious into the mission after Reiner knocked her out, though this is not confirmed. After Bertolt destroys the wall, we are then greeted by an abnormal titan who we know all too well, the pure titan of Dynafrix, who would go on to eat Carla Yeager in a matter of minutes. Her titan, interestingly, completely ignores Bertolt, seemingly completely focused on completing her mission to find Grisha, exhibiting an unnatural amount of intelligence for a pure titan, likely due to her royal blood. We are then shown Reiner's perspective as he destroys the gate, going through his convictions and his realization that he still understands nothing. This scene does a lot to humanize Reiner, Bertolt, and Annie, who are only 12-year-old children at the time of the invasion. The episode then cuts to Annie waking up next to Reiner and Bertolt in Walrose, with Reiner apologizing to his comrades, promising to be a better warrior in the future. If you look closely in this scene, we are treated to an appearance of our original trio in the background, who are still in shock from the recent events. The next scene is Reiner iterating his desire to save humanity to Keith Shadis before we cut to the mid-episode info card. A big cut from the manga also occurs, as before this scene in the manga, we are taken to the warrior candidates roughly 2 years after the destruction of Walmaria, with Annie figuring out the information that the ruling elite of the island are not in fact subjects of Ymir, therefore being aware of the threat that Marley poses, dismissing the idea of convincing one of them in order to gain info, which Bertolt adamantly protests. Reiner then suggests the ideas of joining the military in order to infiltrate the government via the military police brigade, contemplating how much they can do without causing the king to release the titans upon the world, stating the reason that they are there is to stop it. We then get the same scene as in the anime, but with additional context. Our next scene is the warriors being informed by a depressed elderly man about the destruction of his village and the death of his children. This occurred soon after the destruction of Walmaria when the Titans attacked. It is interesting to note that this is almost verbatim the story that Bertolt and Reiner tell in the third episode of the series, when they initially meet Eren and Armin. This is clearly where they got their cover-up story. Later the next day, the man is found hanging from a tree after committing suicide, an act which disturbs the trio and fills Bertolt in particular with guilt. We then cut to Annie roaming the back alleys of the capital, trying to gather information on the top brass of the island. A small bit of info that was cut from the manga, where it was shared via Annie's internal thoughts. The rest of the scene plays out concurrently with the manga, with Kenny Ackerman sneaking up on Annie, who is following him. He is clearly suspicious of her actions. When Annie tries to shake off of a story about Kenny being her father. This false story does not work, however, and Annie has to escape via a surprise attack. Before we go on to the next scene, it should be noted that there was another big cut from the manga, with an interesting confrontation between Eren and Jean about Eren's failures during training, which Reiner then has to break up. Although it is a fairly lighthearted scene, it does further provide context and characterization of Reiner being the big brother to the group. Back in the anime, we get another lighthearted moment of the group joking about Bertolt's sleeping positions and what weather they might be pointing to. However, the position itself has dark undertones, being very similar to a representation of a hanged man. We then get the warriors talking about what they figured out so far and their next move forward, with Annie still worried about her run-in with Kenny, expressing her view that she does the most in the group, while Reiner and Bertolt play with their friends. Reiner, in his warrior mindset, goes on to claim that they are not his friends but, quote, island devils. Reiner also expresses his new idea to destroy Walrose, feeling that they need more progress to report to the Marleyan High Command. Reiner's Cold Warrior outlook is immediately contrasted with the following scene, where he encourages a young Eren to carry on with his training, telling him that he believes in him and to, quote, keep moving forward, while an older Reiner in the present day loads a gun and pushes it to the roof of his mouth, about to attempt suicide. Haunted by his experiences on the island, further highlighted by a montage of memories and inner thoughts in the manga, Reiner proceeds to almost pull the trigger before being stopped by a sound of an exhausted Falco reflecting on his day's training, which brings Reiner back from the brink, realizing that he still has people to live for. Additional motivation for Reiner's suicide attempt is to deprive Marley of the armored titan and to prevent Gabi from taking on his burden. However, the first one is unlikely, as Reiner still displays considerable devotion to Marley. We now switch to Falco's perspective as he leaves training beaten down by his current failed efforts to surpass Gabi in order to save her from the fate of the Titans. While contemplating this, he passes the hospital where he sees a wounded soldier he met in the previous episode. Before he can leave, the soldier calls to him and they strike up a conversation. The wounded man informs a curious Falco that he was in fact faking his condition due to his reluctance to return home and face his family. He asks if Falco will snitch on him, to which he replies no. The man then inquires about Falco's training and struggles, learning about his desire to inherit the armored titan to save Gabi. For some reason, the man appears to sympathize with this. The soldier then proceeds to recount the horrors of the war and his observations on its gruesome aftermath, stating that if anyone could truly see it, they would never go to war, further stating that they are pushed by something in order to continue. The camera then pans to the soldier's face, showing a familiar set of determined green eyes, revealing to the audience a 19-year-old Eren Yeager. With this new information, looking back at their interaction, it is clear that Eren is searching for a confidant in the enemy ranks, one who he can possibly manipulate, fishing for information throughout the convo. This does not mean, however, that he is being completely insincere. The family that he refers to are most likely his friends back home for some unknown reason. His sympathy with Falco's mentioning of Gabi may draw from his relationship with Mikasa due to the similarities between the two situations, or some other currently unknown relation. What is clear is that Eren has infiltrated the Marleyan army towards a future goal. It is with this reveal that the episode ends.